Jak rozróżnić pragnienie od uwarunkowania? Płacę psychoanalitykowi fortunę, żeby mi odpowiadał na te pytania. Mój poprzednik kochał precyzję. Jego Matrix składał się z faktów i równań. Nienawidził ludzkiego umysłu. Nigdy nie pojął, że wy macie w dupie fakty. Ważna jest fantazja. Jedyny świat, który się liczy, to ten zamknięty tu. Uwierzycie w największe idiotyzmy. Dlaczego? Co sprawia, że kupujecie własne fantazje? Uczucia. Zastanawiałeś się kiedyś, czemu masz koszmary? Czemu torturuje cię twój własny umysł? Tak naprawdę to my, podkręcający twoją wydajność. Powiem ci coś o uczuciach. Kontroluje się je łatwiej niż fakty. W moim Matrixie im gorzej cię traktujemy, im bardziej tobą manipulujemy, tym więcej energii wytwarzasz. Porąbane.
Dobry. Słuchajcie, no bez względu na to, jak szalony wyda wam się ten gościu na początku, to zachęcam, żebyście wysłuchali całości i dali znać, co o tym myślicie. Będą tutaj pokazywane też nagrania nieba i obiektów latających, widzianych za pomocą noktowizji. Otóż, może pamiętacie, ja kilka razy w naszych filmach na kanale wspominałem o przeróżnych obiektach poruszających się po niebie nocnym. Tak, bo ja w lato bardzo często kładę się na plerach, biorę lornetkę i obserwuję sobie niebo i rzeczywiście ruch jest niewiarygodny i widziałem takie same identyczne obiekty też, jakie on tutaj będzie pokazywał, ten gostek. Niestety nagranie takich obiektów moim aparatem jest praktycznie niemożliwe, dlatego wam nie pokazuję takich rzeczy. A często jest po prostu tak, że lata coś naprawdę super, ładnego, kolorowego, ale zanim się wyceluje aparat w to i odszuka tego na niebie, to trwa bardzo długo i w tym czasie taki obiekt zdąży albo zgasnąć, albo odlecieć dalej, takie rzeczy. Także bardzo, bardzo trudno jest to złapać normalną kamerą. No to tyle. Wysłuchajcie gościa i potem wypowiedzcie się w komentarzach, co o tym myślicie. Cześć, narka.
Then I had a normal childhood growing up. You know, I would see questionable things in the sky, but those experiences stuck with me. And so then I suddenly started waking up around November 11th, 2011, like 11/11/11. I just had this a spontaneous awakening. And shortly after that, I was contacted by the Pleiadians in my backyard. And so I couldn't sleep one night, and I walk outside, and I was just looking at the sky, and I'm like, you know, just talking to the universe, like nobody in particular. I'm just like, if you can hear me, show me a sign. And this huge shooting stars kept ripping over, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy, but it's just coincidence. And then I'm like, okay, do it again. And this huge like gold one rips by like super close, and it was just like I've never seen anything like it looking back in hindsight. And anyway, I was able to make this happen on command again and again and again, like 30 times. But I'm still thinking, okay, this is just coincidence because I can't put a label on it. And so I'm out there, like I meditate for a little bit. Like I didn't really know what I was doing back then. And so it's getting cold, and like I'm about to say this out loud. I was about to say, well, you know, thanks for the shooting stars. It's getting cold. I'm gonna go inside now. And before I could even voice it, like just the thought of it, all of a sudden this green orb pops in, rips across the sky, does this huge sweeping turn, comes back the other direction, phases out and disappears. And this big blue flash goes off, and then that green ship reappears. And so I'm looking at it with my own eyes, like it physically manifested in 3D. And then my mind's eye opens up and I can see who's on the ship. And there's this woman, and she's just absolutely gorgeous, blonde woman. And then there's a woman and a man behind her. So there's three people total. And man, the feeling that came from that, like there was so much love. Like I'm getting lit up right now thinking about it. Like I was crying from joy. It was the most beautiful thing. It was a type of love that I had not experienced in this lifetime on this planet, like period. It was truly unconditional. And it just like blasted my heart open. And the crazy part was like I knew them. It was like, oh my God, I haven't seen you for so long. And I miss you, and now I'm seeing you, but I don't remember where I know you from. That was the weird part. And so now I realize it was from before this life. But yeah, that was a big like initiation.
Those were the Pleiadians?
Those were the Pleiadians, yeah. And I've talking to other contactees, it seems to be a general theme that like those are some of the first groups that contact people because they look just like us. It's not alien, like they are humans basically, you know, not to freak people out, you know, because if some other race contacts you for the first time, it could be a little disturbing. Yeah.
What did the Arcturians look like?
Okay, so in my experience, they are short, like 3 to 4 feet, kind of like a green and blue luminous color. And they look humanoid, but not necessarily human. But they're not at all like the typical grays. That's a totally different species, and they're creepy and no good. The Arcturians are beautiful and like some of the most spiritually advanced and wise and protective uh, races out there.
Are you saying that this woman with a man and woman behind her, they are your star family, and that's your family that you were with prior to coming into Earth?
So basically, I realized that I'm a star seed. Like I've had other lifetimes in the stars, and now I've chosen to come to this human experience to help shift the planet because basically I've done this before and ascended, and there's a whole group of people who are star seeds who chose to come back to help humanity through this shift because there's a fallen group of beings here trying to stop this ascension from happening. And the only way to participate in this game is to actually incarnate into it. You know, they're flying around up there. They can't necessarily uh, do things here because there's rules to this system. You know, it's like a game kind of.
Was there either something that happened to you, like an NDE very young, or did you make this contract, or did you plan this pre-birth, and that's how the beings found you?
Yeah, this was pre-birth. You know, I have had near-death experiences, but that happened later in life. So I came in aware of this stuff for the most part, but then society's programming and social consciousness kind of took over, and I fell into the illusion, you know, and then woke up back out of it like most people. And then to answer your previous question about is this my star family? Like at first I thought that. I was like, okay, I'm Pleiadian and Arcturian and connected to all this stuff. But then as the experiences continued, I've had interface with so many races, I realized, oh, I'm not just one thing. Like I'm connected to all of it. And ultimately, I exist beyond it inside the central sun. Like I know my true origin. And so these are just levels along the way, you know, so I don't necessarily identify as one race. Like all the star people in general, it's like it's the greater family of man. There are cosmic brothers and sisters. Yeah, it's very diverse.
When people die or transition to the other side, do you think that they're in the dimension where all the star beings are?
I think there's a vast array of different dimensional entities out there, both positive and negative. And so it depends on whether a person's been doing their inner work of self-mastery and raising their vibration, depending on what they're going to experience when they do leave this body, you know. And it's like navigating the bardo, you know, and if you're doing your work in this lifetime, you're already starting to navigate it so you don't get caught up in all these nets and traps and snares. And so if a person is doing their work, yeah, they're going to ascend to a higher level and interface with spirits that are above uh, the level of being trapped in this game, you know. And if a person is caught up in lots of karmic loops and addictions and all types of, you know, negative stuff, they're going to be tricked and trapped and recycled back into this system for sure.
Do you think that before people coming here, they're made aware of, okay, you can come to Earth, but it's a tricky place. And if you're not careful, you can get stuck there?
Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone realizes that, but then you get here and you realize, oh, this is a lot harder than I expected. You know, looking at it from an outside perspective, it's like, oh, I got this. But once you're in it, it's like, well, I'm really in this thing, you know. And then the rules here, like the game isn't being played fairly. You know, the what's going on in the world today and the level of mind control and all the fallen stuff is pretty out of control. They're breaking universal law left and right, and it can't go on much longer, you know.
All right, let me get you back to your spiritual journey. Going forward in your life, what happened next?
Okay, so this is back when I was still like 10 years old. You know, I tried talking to some people about it and parents and stuff, and they just right over their head, you know. They didn't listen to me. So but I knew what happened to me. Like it was a tangible, full on 3D manifested experience. And I never forgot that. So even with that experience in my mind of knowing that that was real, like, and then I fell into social consciousness and had like a normal life growing up, you know, going to college and all this stuff. If someone would have been talking the way I'm talking, like back then before I woke up, I would have laughed it off, even having these experiences, because the programming is so thick here, you know. So I understand it sounds crazy to the person who hasn't experienced any of this, but I'm telling you that there's more stuff out there than people are aware of to your audience, you know.
Mhm. Next in your life, did you become a combo practitioner or a multi-dimensional healer?
Okay, so that came later after a series of initiations and dealing with all these different races and light and dark and all this stuff. And so I'll get to that shortly, or I'll lead into that. So
Mhm.
basically, I met all these different groups of beings. I was contacted by the Pleiadians 10 years ago, and it's been every day since then. Like literally, I walk outside to let my dog go pee, and I look up and hear the ships come, and they're flashing and powering up and talking to me, and there's orbs flying around me, like close, like in my yard, you know. And this has been a daily thing for, you know, over 10 years. And so anyway, when this first all started, I was thinking it was all good because I had only met the good ones, and there it was beautiful, and I was, you know, I learned so much, and I've had experiences that I'm still integrating. Like the stuff that they've allowed me to catch on camera is nothing. Like I've had ships land in my backyard. I've been on craft. Like I've had beings in my room. I've got all kinds of stuff. And you know, there's all this activity going on, and I'll pull my camera out, and it'll stop, and I realize, okay, this isn't. This is just for me. They're not allowing me to share this stuff because the type of heat that would bring on me. That's a real thing because that did happen, and I'll get into that. So um, as this goes on, uh, it went on for like a year, and I tried telling my close friends about it, and you know they thought I was crazy. So I basically just kept it in, and I'm having all these experiences with myself, you know. And I was able to show my ex-girlfriend at the time, like she knew it was real, but she didn't want me talking about it because of how people would view us, you know, back then. And so anyway, at a certain point, I had had so many experiences, and it was so profound that I was like, I can't hold this in because this is, you know, info about ascension and the reason why we're incarnating into this game in the first place. And am I going to care what somebody thinks about me? to, like, what if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow or something? I would look back in hindsight and been like, man, I should have had more courage and I should have spoke about this. And so, yeah, I started talking about it and found out who my real friends were and who they weren't real quick. Yeah. And so anyway, this goes on for a while, and uh, I, they start backing up, and they're like, okay, you need to stop relying on us so much for answers, and you need to, like, focus on doing the work more. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm still talking to them, and I start realizing that some of the info isn't lining up for the first time, and uh, there's conflicting info going on. And then I start realizing there's different feelings coming from different craft that look the same. They're appearing to be the same, like luminous and everything, because I had interface with dark beings back then and dark craft, and you can feel the energy coming from it, and you're like, whoa, that is not good. I don't want anything to do with that. And then, like, the real ones show up, it just lights your heart up, your whole field up, and you can tell who's on it. But then there was this other group that it was like masking their frequency, and they're very intelligent, they know how to play people. And I couldn't really get a read on it. Anyway, I started realizing, oh, there's multiple groups out here, and there's like the real ones, and then there's these imposter, like, trickster beings. And so that threw a wrench in everything, because then I was like, I need to learn discernment, I need to, like, test and approve everything. And now I realize they were right when they said you need to back up and focus on doing the work to learn discernment and realize what's really out here. And so that started a series of initiations to process through this stuff and realize what's what. And so I started speaking at events and going public at a certain point. Like in 2016, I went to East Ranch up with James Gilliland and some people up there. And they're good people, and it's a vortex up there by Mount Adams for sure. I saw ships flying in and out of the mountain through solid rock face. And so, like, they have these bases inside mountains. Like Mount Adams is one of them, Mount Shasta, Mount Rainier, and so on and so on, Mount Kailash. And so I find this very interesting. Anyway, once I really started putting myself out there and being seen by more and more people and posting some, like, undeniable footage, I started being attacked by some really, really nasty stuff. And, I also, like, the more we do this work, like, our so-called junk DNA is not really junk DNA. It becomes active, like, the more you meditate and the more that you walk a spiritual path, it starts to activate, and, like, these higher abilities come online. And one of these abilities is being able to see through the dimensions. And this has activated in me amongst others. But once I started being able to see spirits and orbs and auras and all this stuff, they realized that I could see them. And then the negative ones started to attack me. And so I was being attacked by black orbs that would, like, fly by me, and I would feel my energy drain, and I would feel this foreign thought come into my head. And I realized, oh, this is like a form of mind control. They're trying to work through the mind. And anyway, they work in the unseen. Like, this dark stuff, they'll put thoughts in people's heads, and people will think that it's them, and they'll just run this thought and spiral out down this loop and be controlled by external forces. And I would see this happen again and again and again. I would see black orbs following people, and they'd fly inside them, and then they'd start acting all crazy, and the chaos would happen every time. And so it was this warfare, spiritual warfare around me, back and forth. Like, I remember one night, and I mean, this is going on for a while. This went on for like 18 months of intense back and forth. And I have a lot of other experiences that we could get into of, like, them showing up and stuff. But anyway, this one that pops into my mind, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I saw this, like, black thing fly across my ceiling. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Like, and I called on protection, and these two luminous orbs come through my wall, and one of them shoots at this dark mass and chases it off, and this other one stays above my bed and starts like doing a circle, like patrolling my bed. And I was like, thank you. I got to go to work in a couple hours. Like, this is crazy. You know, this happened to me 24/7. And then I go to work. I can't talk about this stuff. People think I'm insane, you know? So I'm just having to deal with this. It's almost like living in two worlds simultaneously. Anyway, I was also being followed by black helicopters, by armed drones. I mean, they would circle my house. They made themselves known in multiple ways. And I remember one day I went out in the hills and I was, open sacred space, and I was praying. And I look up and there's a literal armed drone hovering above me, and I was just like, okay, I get the message. Anyway, I ended up taking my videos down because I was like, they're pretty much showing me like there's consequences to this, you know? And so I took my videos down. The attacks didn't really stop. They kind of backed off a little bit, but during this period, I did a lot of inner growth and figured out how to discern what's what. And ultimately, I it was an initiation, you know, to tap into my true self. And now I have so much protection around me. I realize there's rules to this thing. Like, I am allowed to speak my truth and post certain stuff. You know, I have massive protection around me. But if I go on the offensive and I start calling out like the dark forces in this world and all the inner workings, you know, they're going to come back at me too. It's like it's a fine line that I have to walk, you know.
If we step back and look at the big picture, what is going on Earth? Is there like some type of war between good and bad aliens?
There's been a war going on for a very long time. And basically, it came to this planet a long time ago in the fall of Egypt. And that's when some of the beings in power made pacts with some really dark stuff that came with this planet. We're still dealing with the effects of that. And so we have this planet was set up as a school. It was like this third dimension is master school. We come here to learn to master ourselves, you know, and like this is the highest dimension in my opinion, and it's also the lowest dimension, because only like the strongest of the strongest come here, because you can get lost in this loop of karma and stuck here and forget who you are. There's consequences to it, you know. But once you ascend out of here, like, it's you bring the wisdom from this back with you. And so this is like one of the final master schools here. Anyway, it was set up perfect in the past. And, you know, this is a world of duality. There's light and dark. And when it's in balance, they both mirror back the same lessons just from a mirror perspective. And that it works for our own growth. And you realize oneness and love and everything, and ascend out of here. But when this fall happened, things got out of balance, and it's turned from a school into like a soul harvesting factory where they're trying to keep people caught in this reincarnation loop, mimicking the real system of reincarnation, which is like where you choose where you want to go for your own soul's growth. You're not being like forced by some being who's calling himself God. And so a lot of these beings are posing as God, but they're not God. They're just, you know, this level in the middle.
Why do they want to keep us here?
Well, because they're feeding off our energy, and so basically, it's turned in. They see us as cattle. They're feeding off our energy. They're feeding off our life force, and they have cut themselves off from source in the process. And so they're thinking that they can create this infinite loop, and it's out of universal law. It can't last. It's going to be cleaned up, but they're going all in. And so it's basically this ancient cosmic war that's been raging for a long time. And this has happened on other planets too, and now it's here. And so the way I look at it is like ultimately everything is one, you know, even these lower beings that have cut themselves off from source, it's still part of the oneness overall. And so it's like this is being allowed to happen because this game is being played on level extra hard, you know, even though it's not fair, like this is what's happening.
Did you ever learn about the origin of the human race or human genetics?
Yeah, so basically the origin of human genetics, it all starts in Lyra, in the constellation of Lyra, and also the Pleiades. Simultaneously, they were evolving together and commuting back and forth. And so there's this ancient war, which, you know, these dark forces, it was composed of Draco and some other stuff. It came into Lyra a long time ago. This war was raging. The planet got destroyed and everyone had to leave. And so they left to the Pleiades, to Orion, to Sirius, to Arcturus, to Aldebaran, and many other systems, you know. And they also came here to a planet called Maldek, which was used to be here, and it has been exploded. What the Dark Ones did when they came here, they put a mini black hole in front of an ice comet and they sent it on a trajectory into our solar system, and it passed so close to this planet Maldek that the gravitation field just blasted it apart, and it turned into the asteroid belt that's now here, you know. And then some of those chunks, some of that shrapnel came off and hit Mars or passed very close to it. Anyway, you can see these big gouges towards the north pole in Mars still to this day, and it wiped the atmosphere off because Mars was also colonized. So then a lot of the survivors came here to Earth, you know. And so basically, there has been a seeding of genetics here on the Earth, you know, from millions and millions and millions years ago of human genetics. Like we go all the way back to Lyra, and there was 22 different star races that like combine their genetics to create uh, some of the early versions of humans. But I mean, it's not like they created us; they just, you know, hybridized us, like, because it all goes back to Lyra anyway. And so there's been many cataclysms that have wiped things out, and then it's had to been restarted over time. And so there's been groups that have came here and upgraded us in our DNA, and there's been groups that have came here and downgraded us in our DNA. And so it's a whole array of different things that have happened. And basically, the people here that of the Anunnaki, some of the most recent group of beings that have came here, um, they came here to mine for gold and re-engineered the human genetics to make us a slave race, basically, and dumb us down. And what they, well, Enki is a genetic engineer, and he put some of his genetics in it that would activate in time. And so basically, when we are doing our work and you know, walking a spiritual path and activating this DNA, we can become able to tap into levels beyond what they can. And so they realize that, and they see us as a threat. And some of them love us and they love their hybridization, and other ones see us as a threat because they're like, oh, they can rise to levels above this and see that you know, things aren't right here. And so there's multiple agendas and multiple groups and all this stuff, but basically they aren't our creators. They're just, you know, and then even the Anunnaki come from Lyra too. So it's all just different versions of these human genetics and different meddling and stuff. You know, because we go all the way back to Lyra.
All right, let's take a look at some of your video footage. First, we're going to be looking at lion beings from Sirius and Arcturus, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to play the video because I think the audio is good. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so let's do it. Let me stop it right there. What are we looking at here? What is this? Is this Pleiadian or Arcturian?
So that's a lion being craft, and they come through and they're all lit up in gold. And so this is night vision, so it doesn't really show colors. Everything looks green, but how it looked within the naked eye was just this huge gold light that's cruising.
All right. And is this one also the same thing, or is this a star?
I think that's a star, but some other ones show up later. But this ship changes colors. It goes from gold to white later. And so there's multiple beings on this craft. They kind of have their signature in colors. It's interesting.
All right, let me play it.
Yeah. Golden ship. Yes. Now it's powering down a bit. That was fully golden at first, and then it changed into a
It's kind of choppy.
more of a white color. That was interesting. There's multiple beings on board. There's a lion beings and.
But then you can just see it power all the way down right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just there, and then it just powers down and dips out.
That's amazing, because if it was an airplane, I would assume you would see blinking lights on it.
Yep. Yeah, you can tell a difference for sure. And then as this video goes on, a bunch of them show up later, and then this one shoots off afterwards.
All right, let's keep going. Before I go, though, where are lion beings from?
So most people think lion beings are Lyran, and that's true, but they've also, colonized Sirius, and the ones that I'm talking to are mainly from Sirius, so the golden ones, and then there's also these ones that are white, and so they're from both, from Lyra and Sirius.
All right.
Like. Yeah.
And that one starts flashing, and it's like, oh, there's another one.
Everybody's out tonight. The whole fam. Look at these guys.
And then another one starts coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's this one that'll keep flashing on the right here. And then it shoots off right there.
I got that on film.
That was amazing. All right, let's look at another one. Now, this one is going to be video of Arcturian and Pleiadian. Is there any way that we can differentiate between the two ships?
No, they both kind of look the same. It was just the feeling that was coming from them and the telepathic stuff that was going on.
Okay.
Arcturus.
So you can see
so much
two
love.
Cruising to the left,
From
one
my heart
above
to all
the other
beings,
one.
to all sentient beings everywhere. Another ship right above it.
That one's all powered up right now on the
Thanks
bottom.
for showing
It
up,
just
my friends.
lit my heart up when that happened. When they power
Appreciate
up,
the
you can
footage.
feel your whole field light up. And now they're right next to each other.
Yeah.
And then this other one comes in from the other direction here in a second.
The Arcturians. That was a lot of energy I was just feeling. And
See?
yeah,
Boom.
another one. Wow.
Powered up real
Thank
quick.
you. So much energy, heart energy, just lit up.
I'm going to stop here for a moment. So when you see these craft, they basically look like orbs to you, or if you saw them up close, do they look like you're typical saucer-shaped UFOs?
Well, that's a good question. So when this was first happening, it was hard to label it because I hadn't actually seen the craft up close, but I did. That when there is times when they come close, and I've seen the actual ships and the windows and all the detail on them and all that stuff. When they're at a distance, they kind of look like just this bright ball of light. And so um, I had this one experience where I I walked outside and I saw this green orb rip across the sky, then stop like completely like that right above me. And it was just this big green ball of light. And then it starts powering down. And I start to see this disc in the middle translucent, and it's powering down and getting dimmer and dimmer. And this disc is becoming more and more materialized. And then it becomes like a solid metal disc floating there with just a little bit of you can see the electricity arcing around it in a torsion field pattern, because that's the mathematics they use, like counter rotating fields. And then it powers all the way down, and all the luminosity goes away, and there's just a disc floating there. And then it starts floating like uh, up and down and kind of wobbling a little bit. And I asked him, I was like, what's that about the wobble? And they said, well, we're changing power systems to become physical, and now we're riding the magnetic waves of the earth, and they're kind of at flux, so it's kind of like a boat in water.
Hmm.
And that was like 40 feet above me. I could have thrown a rock at it.
All right, let's get back to the video.
Man, you guys are finally showing up on film for me. I really appreciate that. I say that because it's frustrating. You know, sometimes
pops in for a second.
Sometimes they don't show up. Oh, we got another one right here. Coming up.
There's another one
that just went to the right. It's dim now.
And then in the video,
this memory card is running out.
A little later, I was talking, and they'll communicate. You know, they'll flash.
Yeah.
To affirm things or say yes or no, and they change colors. See right
it's
here.
It's all about self-realization.
They're gonna flash because I was like, I'll record some footage when it's time later.
I'll definitely swap this memory card out for another one, and
this one will pop in and out in a second.
I'm gonna record some good footage when it's time. I hope.
Can you go outside every night and see this?
Oh, for the most part. Yeah, basically every day. Like if I spend time out there and I'm like, where are you? Yeah, they'll show up. Sometimes they're busy. Sometimes they just come through like they got a message to bring or something. But yeah, it's pretty much every day. And I've realized that when I'm doing really good and everything's on point, they don't want to disturb me. They're like, he's got it. Let's just back off and let him do his thing. You know, so they're also kind of here to keep me on track, you know? And then I would start thinking about it. I'm like, why aren't you showing up? What's going on? And they're like, it's not about us. It's about you. You're the one in the game. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Okay, so this video is called Ground Ship Takeoff.
This is Mount Adams. And if you look, it'll leave from the ground directly in front of the mountain and shoot off to the left, going up and left. And so this is between us and the mountain, because people are like, oh, these are satellites you're filming. It's like, yeah, satellites don't take off from the ground.
Right. All right, let's check it out.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Oh, look at that.
That just happened, and then it replays slower.
All right, so just to let people know, it looks like it's starting from about here and then goes in this direction.
Yep.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Yeah.
So do you think that that ship somehow goes into another dimension, like out of phase, but it's inside the mountain?
Exactly. So they're in a higher dimension, so they can go through solid rock. But what steps through the dimensions that we can see is the luminosity and the energy and everything. And this is a perfect spot to tie into this other experience where I mean, this is probably in 2015, maybe 2016. No, I think it was 2015. I I had these these quartz crystals that I had left outside and had them in code, and I had put them in my water and I was drinking them. And anyway, like I had it laying around for like a year, and I was just like, I might as well put this in it and drink this water. And anyway, this thought popped in my head, like, go outside, look at the sky, which I thought back then was me. Now I realize it was them just subtly talking to me. And so I walk outside and I look up and I see this bright star there, which I had been seeing there for like 3 weeks. And I remember thinking, I don't remember a star right there. Like, because I was pretty familiar with the constellations and everything. And then I was like, okay, there's Venus, there's the other bright one. I was like, yeah, there's for sure not a star there. That's something new. And it just been parked there for 3 weeks every night. And then I look at it and all of a sudden it starts moving. And I'm like, oh my God, it's moving. And so it's moving and moving. And then I see this gigantic ship phase in around it with the light still there. And I mean, this thing was massive. It must have been miles wide. Like it's hard to tell distance at a distance, but it was massive. It was a mothership. And so it looked like a boomerang. It was like the front was like this curved arced area with the bright light right in the middle, and then it had like this long back, so it was like a boomerang with a curve in the front, but it had like a little different angle to the back too. And anyway, it was moving across the sky like this, and it phased in for like 30 seconds and then phased all the way out, but the bright light was still there. And then that's when I realized, oh, so the first thing that steps through the dimensions is the motor that's driving this thing, because that's where all the power source is, right? And so that's transcending through multiple dimensions at the same time. Then they can pull the rest of their ship through at will, because it's all vibration. If you change the vibration of things, it'll change through the dimensional layers. Like I'm sure you've seen cymatics where they put sand onto a table and play a sound through it, and as the sound raises, it's like it'll start to vibrate into different patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And they raise the sound, and it'll go through this blurry phase, and it'll lock into a more complex pattern, and it'll do it again and lock into an even more complex pattern. And so that's basically sound forming things into patterns, and that's kind of how the dimensions work. Like it's different levels of hertz that locks this whole thing into different dimensions.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a look at another one.
So this one's cruising along, and I ask it to power up, and it does on cue.
Okay, let's take a look.
I don't know if we can hear the actual sound from the video, but...
So you're saying that you can actually hear them power up as well?
No. You can hear me ask them to.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There you are. You just flashed a minute ago. I got the camera rolling. Can you give me another flash? Come on. Come on. You can do it. Let's power it up, you guys.
So here it is.
Yeah, come on, power
pretty
it up.
soon here I ask it
Power
to
it
power up. And it goes,
Yeah.
boom, right
Thank
there.
you.
That was pretty much it for this video.
That was great. What should we be seeing in this one?
So this one powers up a whole bunch and in and out, and you can see that when it powers off, there's completely nothing there because you can see everything in the sky. So it's phasing in and out.
The Arcturians.
So first, this one's just cruising, and it's right next to Arcturus, this star. kind of letting me know who they are
So
too
there's an
before I can hear
Arcturian
it
ship
clearly.
just cruising.
And so most people
And
will be like,
there's
"Oh, you're
Arcturus, that
filming
bright star
satellites
right
or
there.
whatever," and it's like, yeah,
Ship seems to
satellites
be getting
will
brighter.
change direction and power up and down, and you know are intelligently controlled, which it'll do here in a second. So now you can see that there's nothing in the sky, and all of a sudden it'll just pop in and out real quick.
Haha, yeah. Thank you. An Arcturian ship. Just saying hello. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you guys. Love you too. Yeah.
It continues to do this for quite some time.
How do you think they're able to see you or find you on the earth, especially from such a far distance away?
Well, there's so much observation here on the earth of what's going on, because what happens here ripples out and affects everything else. So we're not just like some insignificant little species. Like, we're in master school right now, and the ones who are in control of the earth are trying to get humanity to give their consent to give all their power away. And there's good ones here that are trying to stop it, but it's up to us, because like if we stand up and say no, like the games stop and we take our power back. And so there's so much observation going on, and it's interesting because I'll walk outside and I'll just be happen to be looking around, like wherever I'm looking, and I'll ask a question and they'll pop in right there. I'm like, how did they know I was looking right there at that exact moment? And it could be like when I'm talking to someone in the background, and they'll time it perfectly. So like just I see it, and I'm realizing they can see what I'm seeing through my eyes, and they can go forward and back in time at will. And so they can make things line up like absolutely perfectly, synchronistically. Some high technology. I don't know.
Are we all able to see UFOs like this? And if so, how do we do it?
Oh yeah, everyone has these abilities. So I'm not special here, and so it's like when you start to walk a spiritual path and become aware of your multidimensional uh, being, like you're existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously, you start to realize these dimensions are full of life too, and you're not alone. And it's been that way the whole time. And so having interface with different beings is just part of the enlightening process. There's no way around it. And so it's really not about the beings, it's about the process of us tapping into the higher force and living through the heart, and realizing that everything's one and everything's love, and integrity is everything, and walking this path. And the tests come, man, they come from every angle, because this thing still is a school. There still is an organic school that's in line with universal law happening here, but there's also like this fallen aspect here trying to distort things.
What kind of tests are you speaking of?
So the universe is going to, or I should say the dark side is going to, they can see right through you, they can read you, they can read all your wounds, all your traumas, all your past experiences, and they're going to play on it, and they're going to put those thoughts in your head so you want to spiral out down this path, and they're going to try to mess with you till you take your power back. Like they're going to look for any kink in the armor to get in. And so like some of the things that Arcturians taught me years and years ago is that like you have to control your thought process and control your emotions. And that's really hard, especially when life happens, and relationships and all this stuff. And so um for instance, like the dark ones are opportunists. So say you go through a breakup and your heart is just broken and you're in a really low vibration. Well, that's when they're going to hit you. They're going to hit you when you're at your lowest. And so this whole thing is about realizing that I control what emotion I run. I control my thought process, not anything external, not the dark, not the light, none of it. I'm in control and I'm connected to the higher force right here. I'm mastering myself. I'm mastering my emotions. I'm mastering my thought process. You know, what I think, what I feel, what I choose, and what I speak and what I do, it's all congruent. There's no confliction in me, you know, and that this is the great work. And so many people are crossed up. They think something but do something else, and they're just all over the place scattered. So it's like when I've realized that my biggest uh, weapon, my biggest protection is alignment. Like, yes, a lot of these beings are very protective, and it helps to have friends in high places, but ultimately it's, if you walk a path of alignment, your protection comes naturally, you know.
In the beginning, I mentioned that you are a Kambo practitioner. What does that mean?
Okay, so when I was going through all these initiations, um, it took like a physical toll on me. I started to get physically sick dealing with, you know, these black orbs and all these weird ships showing up and all this crazy stuff going on, which I'll get into a few more experiences of this later. But basically, once I passed all these initiations, I had to physically heal myself, and I found combo, which is it's a venom from a frog in the Amazon, and it's not psychoactive, and it is legal, and so it helps people who have diseases like cancer and autoimmune diseases, um, and it also clears you out spiritually. Like it'll clear, what the natives say, panema, like a dark cloud following you, bad energy, bad spirits. It clears that out from you. And so basically, to apply it, you get a little stick and light it on fire and blow it out and cherry it, and you'll touch the skin in a couple spots and wipe the top layer off, and then you apply the medicine onto these points. And you've drinking like a half gallon of water prior to this, so your stomach's full of water, and this energy starts ripping through you and ripping through you, and you just breathe and you remember your intention, you remember your prayer, and it intelligently moves through your body and like cleans all your organs out, and it'll dump all these toxins into your stomach, and then you purge and you throw up, you purge it out, and it drops down and gives you a chance to breathe and drink more water, and it builds and builds and builds, and you purge again, and then it'll do that again, and then maybe one more time, this last purge, that's when you get out all this color, all this bile comes out. And I've seen people who are dealing with, you know, like alcoholism and some really nasty stuff, like black stuff, come out of them. You know, the color changes depending on what's going on in a person's body. And so once you get all that out and you feel complete, you wipe the medicine off, and it very quickly goes away, and you come back to baseline. And afterwards, you literally can see clear and you feel reborn, and it gets you so clean, like just naturally physically, that you can go out of body and have full on interface and experiences. Like I've had activations and amazing stuff happen with combo, and it's not psychoactive. It just clears all the chatter out of your head and clears everything out. And so, and it's a very powerful medicine. um but it's no walk in the park. You know, you show up to do the work and to purge, and so it rewards you greatly for that.
Some people on the planet have Rh negative blood. Does that have anything to do with these beings?
Yeah, so basically, Rh negative blood is uh, it's from the Anunnaki, and when I say Anunnaki, that's a broad term, just meaning those from heaven who came to earth. Like some of them are benevolent, and some of them are not. A lot of people want to paint this picture all in a bad light, and that's not the case. There's both sides of it, and I've met both sides. And so I have Rh negative blood, and I was shown from them that this is, you know, their genetics, because Rh negative blood just pops up in history out of nowhere. It can't be like, an origin can't be traced to it scientifically. I'll lead into this experience uh, following another experience. So basically, this is back when I was going through these initiations, and anyway, I'm at the store in line buying some paint, and all of a sudden this like dark energy comes over me, and I can't shake it, and I'm like, what is going on here? This won't leave. I'm trying all the clearings, it won't leave, and I'm like, all right, let me just get home and get grounded, and I'm trying to like clear it. It won't clear. And when I get home, and it's just the same thing. It won't leave, and like this continues and continues, and all of a sudden I'm in my room, and I get pulled out of body, and I can see these two beings like doing their whatever they're doing, like black magic stuff. And I mean, man, the frequency that coming off of them was like 10,000 years of like torture and like suffering. It was really, really, really nasty. And I had been having dreams of these beings prior to this for a couple weeks, and waking up in sleep paralysis. And they basically were wearing like these robes, but their face was a shadow. You couldn't see their face, and they were like it gets really dark. But anyway, so I get pulled out of body, and I'm seeing these two beings that are standing over me, like casting this like dark energy on me. And I'm trying all the clearings that I know, and they won't leave. And I'm like, what is going on? This is like the most powerful, most evil stuff I've ever come across. And I was just thinking, I'm a good person. I've never like done anything wrong. Why is this happening to me? And anyway, this continues, and then at a certain point, this golden light this opens and like shines on me, and like I see all of life, like the plants, the animals, people, like even the asleep people, or even like dumb people, even people who are bad. Like it just all life is sacred. The contrast in comparison to something that's even worse than death, I was just like, oh my God, I love everything. And that just exploded out of my heart and blew these things back. And they left, and that cleared them out. And then all of a sudden, all these higher beings came in, the Arcturians, and this council of they're known as the Anunnaki. They're known as the Light Council Elohim. And there's also another false Light Council Elohim, which gets really tricky. But the actual light ones showed up too, and it was just beautiful. And then the house was cleared out, and all these high vibes were there, and I was like, where were you guys? Like, why did I have to go through that? They're like, you had to see it for yourself. You had to go through the test. And I was just like, okay. Anyway, so over time, I'd been having interactions with this light Elohim council for a very long time. And Shiva is one of them. Like I had experiences with Shiva, and I'm not Hindu. I didn't study any of this stuff. I just started having these experiences. A lot of it ties back to these Vedic teachings, and to ancient Chem, and to Tibetan Buddhism, to ancient Peruvian teachings, and to Norse teachings. And so this is, my experiences are going on. And anyway, like when I was wrapping up these initiations, I remember being out on this trail at night, this night hike, and like all these ships are flying by. Some of them are good, some of them are not good, some of them are in the middle. Like I don't know who's who, and it was pretty confusing, And I was pretty pissed off. I'm like, you know what? I have gone out on a limb to talk about this stuff publicly. I've lost relationships, I've lost friendships. Like there has been consequences to me trying to illuminate people to higher levels of wisdom and truth. And they're like, yeah, we know. I'm like, so, I'm going to need a face to face with you. You either land your ship and we talk, or you take me up there and we talk face to face, not this out of body stuff, like physically 3D. Like that's what I need before I go any further. They're like, okay. I'm like, okay. And then 3 days go by and like nothing happens. And I'm just like, just everything, leave me alone until I figure out what's going on. And so anyway, I get home from work one day, and I'm like sitting on my bed, like still in my work clothes, and it's like completely sober. And because a lot of people want to like discredit this. Like this is completely sober, and all of a sudden I see this shadow run by, but it was like it was there. It was in between dimensions, but I saw it for sure. Even my dog saw it and turned and was like, "Whoa!" There was something there, and I saw it shoot by, and like I saw it in fast forward. It was like, but I could tell if you slowed it down, it would have like walked over, like wrote some stuff down, walked over, wrote some more stuff down, and then left. And it did not feel good. And I was like, no, I am not doing this. I'm having this like demon in my house. Like, get out of here. Like, I'm not doing this. And so I just called. I was like, I call up on the highest octave of creation. I call upon my true ancestors. I call upon my guardians. Like, where are you? And all of a sudden they came telepathically, and I knew exactly who it was from like many previous interactions. They're like, well, you asked us to leave, so are you sure you want us to come back? I was like, and as soon as I said yes, this column of light shot through the roof of the ceiling of my room, and this is visible with my own eyes. This column of light shoots down, and these basketball sized light orbs start shooting through my room. The whole room gets brighter, everything feels amazing, everything gets cleared out, and then they manifest into these 7 foot tall beings that all surround me. There was like 7 of them, and they look like humans, but they're 7 feet tall. But all you could see was light. This is what I'm seeing with my own eyes. All you can see is light. But then I get pulled out of body, and I'm seeing myself and them around me, and the way they look is like very Vedic looking, like with all the jewelry and the technology. Like I don't even know what some of it is. Like there's some high technology stuff going on. Anyway, they walk over to me, and this one woman reaches inside my head and heals me, because prior to this, I had this other experience with this really dark thing, and it basically like um, well, let me back up more. They had worked on me and like upgraded me, and then this dark thing came and like basically pulled like this sword looking thing out and jabbed it in my head, and I had, my vision wasn't right. I had this just pounding headache for like months. Like I was seriously messed up for a long time, and all of a sudden she reaches in my head and like fixes something, and all of a sudden I feel blood flow come to my head. I feel like light and everything come back online, and the pain leaves, and I was like, oh my god, thank you. And it was beautiful, man. They healed me. And so this is going on and going on. And then like I came back in my body, and they phased out, and I'm thinking they're gone. I'm like, okay, they're gone. And then they'd kind of phase back in and pop back out. I'm like, okay, they're still here. And I'd ask a question, and they would like knock on the wall, and I'm like, okay, they're still here. So it takes a lot of energy for them to like physically manifest and be visible. It's a lot easier for them to just be just outside of this dimension. Anyway, this goes on for 2 hours, and they told me so much. I learned so much. They told me, you know, we have these genetics, and it's these star genetics are directly tied to Rh negative blood, and it's basically, it's a higher level of star genetics than Rh positive. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then they showed me that, well, including the dark side, they also have these same genetics. And then I felt like I wanted to throw up, because I was like, oh my God, I'm tied to both sides of this stuff. But then I realized, oh, it's the same genetics on both sides. It's the same species, just like humans. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. It just depends on which side of this war they're on. Anyway, this goes on for quite a while. And I remember I was laying in bed processing everything that just happened. It was like 2 hours later. And I'm just like, oh my God, just processing it, journaling. And I'm laying there, and all of a sudden this being right next to me on my bed phases in, 7 foot tall, just bright, luminous light, and then phases out. And I'm like, oh my God, they're still here. this is crazy. And so I got the face to face I was asking for. And that was the actual benevolent council, like some of the ones who came here long, long ago and set up civilizations and our ancestors. And then they left and left a group to oversee everything here. And that group fell in consciousness and it's turned into the situation where it's in right now. And so the good ones are returning, and this war is still happening, but there's a lot of higher forces returning to help humanity out. But it's up to us as humans to do the work, which gives them the okay to intervene. They just can't come in and do the work for us, and then have us mess it up. We wouldn't learn the lesson. So there's like a giant karmic implication here if they were to come in and clean everything up. So hopefully humanity gets it and starts taking their power back and saying no, and declares that we're a sovereign race and lives from the heart, and that gives them the okay. And that's not to say that they aren't helping, because they are helping. Like if they weren't here, humanity wouldn't be here right now. We would have been wiped out. So they are doing a lot to make sure that everything's okay.
Seth, let me switch gears with you. After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you or contact you. If you're up for that, how should they do that?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel called Solar Lion 144, and I have a website called solarlion144.com. And I offer readings and multidimensional healings and clearing of entity attachment and implants. And I also have combo ceremonies. And I also am organizing Skywatch events where other people can come and we can view the ships together and meet like-minded people and start a tribe of like-minded people.
Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Yeah, I would say that it's all about frequency. Once we learn to master our emotions and master our thought process, our reality shifts. And this is something that I've been taught through many different angles from the universe, is that we create our own reality. We're not victims in this thing. And so if we take our power back, everything shifts in our favor and we're in control.
Seth, thank you for that message, and thank you again for being my guest.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching the Jeff Mara podcast. I really appreciate it.